Welcome to the Salvage Agency TULCA Festival of Visual Arts 2024 programme. This is the curator's talk you're on, and this is the main space here in the Printworks. Jonathan here will be filming throughout, so take no notice. I'm mic'd up, but you might not be caught for sound, that's fine. We've turned off the sound of the video here, but it'll be back on again. I'm just going to walk through the space. So it'll probably be 30 or 40 minutes. Feel free to ask questions throughout or keep them for the end, whatever you're comfortable with. There's also sound with Katrina Leahy's piece, but we've just turned that down as well while we're going around so it doesn't interfere with recording or my voice carrying in the wind. But when we get to Katrina's installation, we'll put it back on again so you can experience it. And it's a very ephemeral kind of sound as well. It's very nice. So I'm starting here because in an hour's time, I'm going to be in conversation also with the artist here, Seanie Byrne, who's not here right now this minute. So I won't go too deeply into his work because I would encourage you to come along and see him for yourself in action. He performs a little bit with the pieces, and he speaks in a very eloquent and beautiful way about the construction and the making of the work. But you would have noticed on the way in, beside the table with the publications, our shop, let's say, there is a sculptural work there as well, that's Star Wars Man. So behind me, and maybe I'll just stand over here so you get the full, come forward here. Don't be shy, just there's the work. There's a selection of maybe, I think 25 or 30 of these beautiful walking sticks here that Seanie would make. So Seanie wouldn't have had any formal education in terms of crafts making or art school or anything like that. He had his first exhibition at the age of about 64 in Askeaton in, I think it was 2013-14 time. 2014, actually, yeah. Just overhead the tourist office there. So I would have known Seanie. He's from the same town as myself, Askeaton and County Limerick. I would have known him all of my life. I didn't realise that he had this workshop at the back of his house that he was making these sticks, and he was doing that all the time. He used to work in roadstone, so you'll see with some of these sticks, particularly with Star Wars Man in the front, there are cat's eyes there. So he takes these objects and he utilises them in that kind of way. So actually this stick in the very corner here, that's the buffalo. You'll probably notice that the orange eyes are there, and depending on where you're standing and what angle, the light hits it, so you get that reflection like a cat's eye, basically. Now, Seanie did tell me when he finished, when he retired, which would be more than 10 years ago, that he took a box of these with him when he was leaving. But I have my suspicions that it was considerably more than that, judging by the way they appear in some of his works. Each of these sticks have a use value as well. You can walk the land with them. But I think he selected particularly flamboyant and aesthetic sticks because he knows that these are going into exhibition format in a gallery. So he's considering that as well. So they take on these amazing shapes. He will talk about, I might go down the end again. He will talk about how when he discovers these sticks that he flips them upside down. So it's the root that he finds first. So they grow like this. This part will be under the ground, and this will be up straight, or not straight, depending. So he'll be looking around. His process is he'll kind of dig it out, pull it out the earth, bring it home, wash it off, and see what he has. They take roughly around a year to make because they have to be straightened as well. So he'll hang them, he'll nurture them like children, watch them and shape them into what he thinks he sees within the stick. So he's quite intuitive as well about how he responds to the material. This one as well, this is actually a piece of turf here, but it's a curragh. And I'm going to draw your attention as well to these lovely curves here. So this is when you get something like ivy or a briar that comes in and kind of chokes the timber. So what Seanie does, sometimes he leaves it there. I don't know if there's any here. No. Yes, there is down here. But sometimes he'll pull them out. So you've got this beautiful, organic, natural design and pattern straight from nature here. So he doesn't, I suppose, push and pull his subject or his material too much. He works with it, and he's intuitive, and he responds to the shape. This one here, he calls this the Medusa. So this is actually, again, sometimes he'll put different timbers together. This is the root of a briar bush, so you can imagine the surface is crawling everywhere else. It's a similar, like a mirror image underneath. Becomes the head of Medusa with a different type of timber down here. Sometimes he'll work with things like deer horn or sheep horn. He has an arrangement with hunters who would hunt for venison for butchers. So he would get the horn from them, and then he would maybe exchange for a walking stick. So you can see with this one as well, he's putting googly eyes in here. He might be running out of the cat's eyes, and this becomes a horse. He's got the reins there. So I would encourage you in your own time, those three down there can be touched and moved around. These are attached to the wall, all right, just very simply with fish gut, so they don't move from side to side. But these down here, you can touch them and feel them and have a look through. I'm going to move on up here. So this is a work by Anya Phillips. It's called The Secret. And it's responding to an area at the back of an IKEA in Dublin, which ends up being this absolute mess of refuge of boxes from IKEA. And it's this play, and of course also Anya very cleverly has installed this within an IKEA box with all the remnants that would come with the packaging of something that you might purchase there. And it's got this really nice flow where she's just in her car driving along, capturing these remnants and strewn remains of just rubbish. So it's that kind of, you know, in the distance is the dream, the IKEA dream, and then this reality of just things getting strewn around. Somebody recently was saying to me it's still like that there, even though that video is from 2013, it's still just quite rubbishy and around that area. But it's a nice response here, and sitting on the floor, that kind of pointing, I suppose, again to that sense of salvaging something from the wreckage, if you like. And then this is David Beattie's. So there's two works actually within the space here. There's Shifting Forms, which is this work, which I'll talk about first, and then across the way is Remnants. So Shifting Forms, and this should be, David, is this charged? Can we turn it on? Okay, here we go. There it goes. Now, I don't have one of these personally in my own home. But, you know, I would embrace getting one. Just hint, hint, my partner's out there. So this is called Shifting Forms. So David's kind of playing a little bit on, well, a lot on technology as well, and our day-to-day lives and how it connects in a space. And this work up behind you also here with this kind of fly catcher, I suppose, in a way, or this kind of situation. They're both connected, they're interconnected in that way. So what you have here is this robotic vacuum cleaner, which I think looks quite like a tarantula, depending on the angle you're looking at it. And it's moving about the space. And I don't know if you know how these works, but basically it's responding to the edges of where it is. So it won't go off the edge unless it gets confused or evolves, because it is AI generated. But it moves around. Sometimes it pushes that plant off as well. It just kind of, it reads it, but it's not really responding in the way. It just kind of does its thing. The plant is carnivorous. I think before, when David has shown this, it's usually been in the summer months, so you will get flies coming around and we'll just kind of catch it. Now, he had a selection of them, but they're hard to get, I think, this time of the year. And I do wonder about this plant 2 weeks in a space like this. I think it needs a little more warmth, but look, we'll see how it gets on. So you've got these kind of moments of where, you know, creatures can be caught in the crossfire between the plant and the mechanical lighting here. And then this thing is moving around all the time. So when the battery runs out, it goes back here, docks in, refuels, and then is back in the game again as it moves around the space. I wonder what I talk about. He has another piece across the way called Remnants. But actually, I might just move along and I'll bring you to that. But it's just, I suppose, I'm talking to the space in a way that each artist has a nice part of it, a big chunk of almost installation type scenario. So it's important as well for myself and David Beattie that we would cite his work in opposite ends of each other, where they're not actually part of one work, but they are, of course, his body of work, so they're connected in that way. But we'll move on down here to Katrina Leahy's. And you flick on the sound there, David, just to, what's he doing now? We gotta talk to you first. So with Katrina's installation in this corner here, and she's in the room actually, so if you have any questions, maybe she could answer directly. There's a series of 3 light boxes, and then this video animation, I guess, behind me here. So there's responding to peatlands in the bog, Katrina sort of laid these out in a light box formation here, which are really beautiful. And as the light changes in the space, because the winter hours are in now and everything, this changes also and becomes really interesting corner here with both things going on. So over here is it's a LiDAR scan of the bog itself, or a part of it. And Katrina's animated it that it moves around the screen. So it becomes these, I guess, for those who don't know, the bog here is like, it's almost like a kind of strip mining. So you're stripping the surface and digging up peat, basically, for your fuel and your fire peat briquettes. And David, could you put the sound on for this? So it's a very soft sound, but I just didn't want it to interfere, so let it have a go here. Yeah, so bogs are a kind of contentious terrain, really, at the moment in Ireland, in many ways. We have a deep heritage with the bog, cultural understandings of it. It's intrinsically linked with the landscape and with us as a people, but also we're trying to move towards moments of, I suppose, pushing away from carbon emissions as well. Ah, there you go. My favourite part is this wonderful wind that comes through it at one point, which when we were first installing here, I thought it was a bad day outside and I'd forgotten about that this was going to be. But it's a really wonderful, it adds this real atmosphere into all of the space and kind of triggers all of the artworks within it as well. So I'm going to stroll on again here. So within the Salvage Agency, I was specifically looking at artists and artworks who responded to ideas surrounding art that engages with ecology, but on every different level, whether it's to do with a cultural way or heritage way, but also in terms of thinking about art activism as well. And I think throughout the install week, last week and the week before, the space started to take effect. So I think the first thing we installed actually was Katrina's work in that corner because it made sense and it was nice walls and the light was great. And then after that, everything started to, as you curate, or as I curate anyway, I start to have that one piece that's in there and everything starts to build up around that. So somehow, whether it was subconsciously or not, it became this flow throughout the walls here, starting with, I guess, Shawnee Barron's sticks. So you have the land or nature moving forward into Anya's and David's, into underneath the land, the ground, the bog, and coming up around here towards the sea, and all the way around again, sort of finishing again with David Beattie's piece, which is, I'll talk about it in a moment, but it references ring forts, so it's almost like this otherworldly portal effect. So I think that's kind of, I'd like to claim I was deliberately doing it, but I think it was a subconscious flow of elements, if you like, within the space. So this is by artist Niamh Schmidtke, and there's two works here. There's also 6 panels on the wall behind you, and then there's this work as well here. Excuse me. There's my voice going now. Just you've been warned. I did warn you. So this is 3D scans, but made in clay, relating to, I suppose, I guess in a sense, a 3D graph of carbon emissions. So it's between the Irish Sea. So she was responding to, she was living in London. She's still living in London at the time. And she was thinking about the Irish Sea as being this thing that separated her from her family in one way, but it was also the thing that connected her to her family. So she was kind of responding to the carbon emissions on both sides. So the blue is ceramic tiles also as well, and that's representing the sea. But then as it starts to grow up, that's actually the land coming in and the emissions with that. And then you also have these wind farm here as well. So it's sited on compost as well, that kind of grounds it in. And then over here are 6 panels that are relating to, I'm just going to get the title of that now because the title I think is quite special. Hold a second, and I want to get it right, not to be saying something I shouldn't be saying. Let me see now. Yeah, drafting communication, drafting climate, drafting futures. So it's a fictional email exchange that they created from different companies to do with air quality and back and forth over a period of, I think, 6 months. So I think this is the first time they have been shown in this sort of a way where they're being kind of highlighted and pulled out. They also feature in the Savage Agency publication. So you can have a little look at that, which is being sold for the very reasonable price of €10 out there at the desk. Terms and conditions apply. But you can read these in your own time here and have a walk through them. Now, they're two separate pieces of work, but again, they respond quite well to each other within the artist's body of work in a way, and it's a nice flow as well in the space. So I'm going to bring you on over here to, here's Noel, who installed a lot of the work, most of the work in the space, and is responsible for channeling water away from this. So this is a Peter Find and Finn van Gelderen. So when I was thinking about TULCA as well, I started to think about maybe practices that were from artists who were maybe of a, well, you can see it within the space, but a generation that are kind of maybe a little bit removed from Ireland, or in the case of Lily Van Oost have passed away, but there's people who have kept an archive of this work because it's important. So I've been kind of unofficially calling this area here and the installation in Galway Arts Centre research platforms, because it's other people kind of putting together, thinking through an artist's practice, as opposed to the artists themselves having a direct hand in it. So with Peter Find, who will actually be here in 2 weeks' time, doing an in-conversation with the artist Sean Lynch here on my left. He will be here, but it was quite difficult to contact him. So he's in his late 70s now, and he travels around a lot. So this particular work is a piece that he made in Dublin as part of a public art commission, and he works with ocean earth a lot. So this is Finn van Gelderen is the filmmaker who's created this video here. It's a 10-minute excerpt from a larger piece, and he's very kindly allowed us to show this here. You can listen to it on the earphones, you can walk around the space, you can have a look at this while you're listening to it. And then Finn also provided us with his archive of that time when Peter was in Ireland. So the Ocean Earth Collective is kind of how it sounds. It looks a lot at Earth, or the ocean and the Earth, and kind of figuring out things to do with water ecology. So what Peter was proposing for Ireland at the time was to look at specifically water basins in the country, and to imagine a kind of a fiefdom, or its own territory within the beginning of a water basin all the way up. So ignoring the land and focusing on the rights of water really more than anything else. So you see here these kind of posters that he had made at the time that were distributed around Dublin, responding again to Ireland as being sort of like this, I guess just sourcing and looking at the water and pointing to that and highlighting it. So water is always something that's quite contentious in Ireland as well, I would imagine. For us in Askeaton, we couldn't drink our water for almost 2 years, and it's only recently been lifted. It was a boil-only notice. So it's sort of something that we think about as being far away, that kind of that right to be able to drink your own water. But it's really not, and it's still a contemporary issue to this day of how we respond to that. So there's wonderful pieces of ephemera here. And then also there's a couple of photographs. Like, there isn't a whole lot available of that. People weren't as good about keeping their archives, I think. Pre-digital technology, maybe it wasn't so easy. But Peter had these wonderful photographs as well of the installation, where you had the posters that were over here on a larger scale inside in the space. And then, yeah, you can have a look at that there in your own time. And then I'm going to come down to David Beattie's second piece, which looks at the other piece over here. Very nice linear symmetry. And this is called Remnants. So this comes from, it's only just made this year. So David has been on, I suppose, a long-term, let's call it slow residency with Askeaton Contemporary Arts, which is the organisation I usually work with as a curator in County Limerick. So with Askeaton Contemporary Arts, we wouldn't have a gallery space, but we would work directly within community. There's a population of maybe 1,200 people in the town. And there isn't that kind of history of contemporary art, but we've been doing it now for about 20 years. So artists come through various lengths of time. we're working on some new programs at the moment. So David has kind of been working back and forth with us for almost 2 years now. This was a piece that David made specifically for Helsinki this year for a program we were doing there with Publix Helsinki, which is incidentally where I first met Leanne Hurley, also one of the artists in the show this year. So this is a piece called Remnants. He's responding specifically to a ring fort in County Limerick called Lochgar, which I believe is the biggest in Ireland. And this is interactive. So I see people coming in and putting on the headphones, but you can also touch it. So what he's done is he's quite into art of AI, as you can see, in technology. He's generated through, I think, probably a program like ChatGPT, where he's inputted and asked for stories about ring forts in Ireland. So you can come and you can listen to this also Irish voice, but you can also touch the screen and control this moving around. Sorry, get out here now. This is very, yeah. So, God, put our fingers today. So it's actually, here we go. So this is how it looks. So this is the tree stone, which is a very important stone within the stone circle in Limerick. And he's, again, I think it's a LiDAR scan with this. He scanned that in, but you can come and you can manipulate that screen. Every time you touch it, it responds to the voice. And so the story jars and it might change or it might jolt. But you're in charge of that. You're in charge of that kind of how it moves and how it thinks and connects. So that brings me all the way to the end again. I see Shani Barron hiding there behind the pole, but you're not going to see him for another 20 minutes because or maybe it's a little bit more than that, it's less than that. He's going to be, myself and himself are going to be in conversation. Come out there, come out, say hello. Myself and himself are going to be in conversation in about 20 minutes time, which is enough time for everyone to go and get a coffee or walk around the space. But if there's any questions or is there anything I've left out or just hop in. Sorry, you're right, yeah. So in here, because the sound is down, thank you, this is one of our volunteers here. It's great. Thanks for that. In here is the film, we've turned the sound down for that. So that's by Michael Hawley, and it's actually a short documentary about Shani Barron. It's about, I think, 10 or 15 minutes long. It's a beautiful film. The soundtrack is by Caoimhín O'Reilly, and it's really just a vignette, a kind of a capturing Shani, not even a day in the life, just like an hour, where he's walking through a local train track, where it would be the favourite stomping ground of Shani. But actually it's very poignant because at this stage they're reopening that track. So all of what you see, that lush foliage within that video work, it's gone. It's cleared out, all the biodiversity has been just erased now, and the track is coming through with the gravel and the everything else. And that film it was first shown in Cork International Film Festival and it won the Audience Award. But it's also something that you can find on the Askeaton Contemporary Arts media channel. But I think David will turn up the sound in that now again as we finish the talk, and you can get in and have a little look at that before we get back in the game again with the maestro himself, the maestro. Anything else? Anyone? Great. Thanks for that, everyone. Thanks for being an attentive audience.